We're going to be going through this one right now, and we want to talk about a couple different things. So here's our equation, y equals 25 divided by x. 25 over x, if you will. And if we were to graph this particular one, here's an attempt at an xy axis, it would look something like this. With this part here of our equation line approaching the y-axis. This part here approaching the x-axis. This part here approaching the x-axis, and this part here approaching the y-axis. So the question on this one is, what's the domain? What's the domain of this function? And domain are any possible values for our input, or our x. What can x be? Well, can x be 1? 25 divided by 1 is 25, that would be okay. Can x be 3? 25 divided by 3, that's 8 point something. We're okay there, still good. X can really be anything here except for one number. X cannot be 0. Because we cannot divide by 0, x cannot be 0. So x cannot equal 0. Okay? So our domain would be all real numbers. That's our shortcut for all real numbers, except 0. It can be anything. Anything except 0. And if we look right here, we see that this line here is going up and approaching this x-axis. Excuse me. If we look right here, it's going down and approaching the y-axis right here. It never really touches it. It creates what we call an asymptote. So it comes on down and it almost touches but never quite. And it just gets slowly and slowly closer. Okay, so x can be any of these numbers. Anything on both sides. Except for 0. Cannot touch. It never touches that y-axis. Alright. So now let's look at... Whoops. I wanted to keep that up. I'll give a rough rendition here of it. Okay, now I want to look at the asymptotes. And first let's look at the horizontal asymptote. Okay, the horizontal asymptote, that's the one that goes this way. What can, what line does it approach but never quite touch? When we look right here, it goes right along this x-axis but never touches it. So, in this case, our horizontal asymptote would be y equals 0. Okay, it's a horizontal line right at the x-axis, y equals 0. The vertical asymptote, kind of a funny word, asymptote, but it is. So the vertical asymptote, the one that it gets really close to but never quite touches, is x equals 0. And it's always whatever this number is that x cannot be. The domain is everything except that number, and that number is our x equals. Okay, that is our vertical asymptote. It gets real close to but never touches.